grateful to be able to stand up here and say a few words to you today. I was a strange child. At night I would look up at the sky and wonder what it was that made the stars twinkle while the moon and the sun did not. I asked my mom about it, and she said she didn't know. She was a registered nurse and didn't think much about astronomy. Dad wasn't a studious man and didn't cotton to thoughts about heavens, let alone hell, purgatory, limbo, or why the stars twinkled. So going to him with questions about heaven or the heavens would have invited something less than what I was looking for. I thought on my conundrum, and I thought some more. I decided in my child's mind and understanding that the dark sky was the black dome over us all, very much like an umbrella. I imagined that at night I'd be looking up toward that dark umbrella and that the stars were tiny pinholes in the fabric of the sky. In my child's eye, the light shining through the holes was the brightness of God on the other side. God was just too bright for us to look at him full on. So, as a kindness to us, he let us perceive his light just a tiny bit at a time through those pinholes. Yeah, that was a good explanation to my child's mind, but it still didn't answer the question of why the light of God twinkled. Oh, golly, how was I going to get a reasonable answer to that one? So I thought and pondered some more. And some more. I'd heard from Mom about the angels and saints in heaven. She was a devout Catholic. I imagined the angels and saints in their heavenly lives milling around in heaven trying to get a better spot for a glimpse of the old man up there on his golden throne. And in their movements they were walking or floating in front of that sky umbrella full of holes, momentarily blocking the holes here and there, causing the light to blink and twinkle to a child's eyes here on earth. Eureka! That's the answer. I didn't really think Eureka because I didn't know any Greek then. But you get the idea. It was like a light going off in my brain. It was the perfect answer to my dilemma. Almost like I'd made contact with the quantum universe and had had a massive enlightenment. Mama, Mama, I hollered as I ran into the house. I've got the answer. The answer to what? She asked as she held up her finger in front of her lips, reminding me to talk quietly so I wouldn't wake my little sister. Why the stars twinkle. And what's the answer, she asked. It's the angels and saints walking in front of the holes in the night sky, I told her. She told me it wasn't really that way, even though she couldn't give me a better explanation. She said that the answer was cute, and she chuckled about it. Later, she told the story to my dad and Granny, my dad's mother, and she told her friends around Lincoln Heights, the government-built WPA housing where we rented half a duplex. Everyone she told said how cute my explanation was. But it was embarrassing. I was embarrassed by the knowledge that all my cognition had done was to invent a cute explanation for the twinkling of the stars. Tell Mrs. Baker what makes the stars twinkle, Mom would ask me. Oh, that's so cute, Jimmy, Mrs. Baker said. They called me Jimmy in those days, but that's another story and much more embarrassing than the one about the twinkling of the stars. Pretty soon I began leaving the room out of embarrassment whenever Mom would start to tell the story, and I began to think how stupid my explanation was. And at the advanced age of 4, I began to think that I was stupid. It took a long time for me to understand that I was indeed not stupid. In high school, I found out that even though I wasn't as smart as some of my classmates, I wasn't stupid either. And the story of the twinkling stars faded into the murky past of my life. The whole affair felt rather unkind to me. My mom, all of 31 years of age at the time, was not an unkind person, and I don't think she would have handled it that way had she been aware of how I felt about it. In high school, I decided it was okay to be as smart as I was and not to fret about what I thought others thought about me. It was then, too, that I decided to be as kind as I could be to others, because I figured no one would argue with kindness. I found out later that I was wrong about that. Some folks will argue with kindness, but that has nothing to do with me. About that time, I focused my future on becoming a monk in a Benedictine monastery in Lacey, Washington, just outside of Olympia. My decision to be a kind person naturally flowed together with that life. I looked for lessons in kindness. The Merchant of Venice in freshman English literature taught me that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation, but we do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. A lesson in kindness. Mark Twain, known to sometimes be a gnarly curmudgeon, said that kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. That's nice. Aesop's wisdom taught me that no act of kindness is ever wasted. And the 14th Dalai Lama said that we should be kind whenever possible. It is always possible, he said. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, that is to have succeeded. And the great mystic Paramahansa Yogananda, one of my favorites, said that one of the greatest victories over the little self is to be sure of your capacity to be always thoughtful and loving, to be secure in the knowledge that no one can make you act differently. Practice this, he urged us. The entire Roman government could not have roused unkindness in Christ. Even to those who crucified him, he prayed, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And of course, there's the story of Jesus' conversation with the two thieves who were crucified beside him. But he also said from the cross, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? My God, why have you forsaken me? He really did suffer for their unkindness. So what is kindness? It is the attribute of being friendly, generous, and considerate. We manifest kindness in our daily lives when we have made a commitment to it. People are drawn to kindness like a moth to a flame. Those who are experiencing difficulty in their lives are drawn to the kind ones. They can attempt to take advantage of kind souls. That's why there are so many attempts to scam the elderly or the innocent, because the scammers know that these folks have a soft spot for the sad stories. Of course, scammers have also found another kind of mark, the greedy. Can't you hear it now? And this happened to me. Just send me $10,000 and I'll pay the taxes on the new Mercedes you've won in the lottery, and I'll drive it over and leave it in your driveway. Oh, I'm waiting for that Mercedes. I'm still waiting for that Mercedes. But we're not talking about the greedy here today. We're talking about the kind-hearted, generous, friendly helpers of the world. There are many kind, loving, and there were many kind, loving, generous monks at St. Martin's Abbey when I was there. They were good examples of living saints in my life. There were also a few unhappy souls there. I observed both during my time at the Abbey. I so much wanted to be like the kind ones, but the unhappy ones frightened me. I was afraid I'd become like them. I was afraid that I'd live an unhappy, unfulfilled life. This was such a monumental lesson in integrity. What you say is what you do. What you do is what you say you do. So in January 1964, afraid that I would be drawn to the dark side, I left the Abbey, and because the government was drafting young men like myself and I had no plan for the rest of my life, I enlisted in the Air Force and was sent to Chinese Language School at Yale University. During the first months of our language training, our instructors observed us in our ways and relationships. Meanwhile, with years of daily decisions to be a kind person, apparently my teacher noticed it. It certainly was not something that I went around talking about. You don't talk to your buddies in the Air Force about being kind. When it came time to give us our Chinese names, Mrs. Xia decided I should be called Gu, with the third tone, meaning old or elder, because most of the others in my class were several years younger than I was. I thought the name was apropos, and I thanked Mrs. Xia for her thoughtfulness. My friends began to call me Gu. However, a week or so later, Mrs. Xia asked me to stay for a few minutes after class. That was very unusual. She told me that she had given me the wrong name. She did. And she wanted me to accept a different translation of the syllable gu, but with a different tone and a different translation of the syllable. One that translates not as old, but another Chinese word with the same sound, gu with a fourth tone, gu. The meaning of the name in this context is to care about or to be concerned for. In an instant, I was suddenly not old, but had become Gu, the helper. Mrs. Xia said that she had discerned in me the quality of caring and kindness that I had exhibited with my fellow students. There was also the subtle, unspoken recommendation that I begin helping them less, because they had to experience their errors in order to learn better. The quality that I had decided some years before to be a central value in my life was evident to this teacher. I was a bit taken aback, but readily accepted this change, and I again thanked her. I haven't told you this story in order to toot my own horn, but in order to let you know that kindness is easily discerned in a person. People will recognize it in you. There are also folks out there who are pretty good at faking kindness, but they will always betray themselves eventually, and we're not talking about them here. I'm talking about true kindness today, because the world will be a better place when it's filled with loving kindness. There's a fair bit of unkindness out there, a lot of name-calling, finger-pointing, and lies being told that have the potential to ruin the lives of others. It can only be neutralized by a world that's filled with people who have made a conscious decision to build, maintain, and expand kindness. Expanding kindness will propel our world into a new age. Kindness will neutralize the vitriol, anger, mental illness, and unhappiness that only seems to be growing. Make a decision to affirm that kindness prevails in our personal lives and relationships. Make amends for those past times when kindness was not the choice. Choose heartfelt kindness, not just some Pollyanna-ish make-believe, but the real thing, expecting nothing in return. Jesus is quoted in St. John's description of the Sermon on the Mount. All these things I do, you too shall do, and more. And I'm always struck by the fact that that isn't a projection of something. That's a promise. He was promising us. All these things that I do, you too shall do, and more. Charles Fillmore was emphasizing Jesus' promise when he said, "Now we have a fuller understanding of the law of God and know that whatever has been done once can be done again under like conditions." If Jesus and his disciples and the early Christians did marvelous things through prayers of faith, we can do likewise. Thank you, Charles, for that wonderful validation. Many other everyday saints have repeated this promise, like Mother Teresa, who said, "The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway." L.R. Knost urged us to love intentionally, extravagantly. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Wayne Dyer humorously asked, "What comes out of you when you're squeezed? Squeeze an orange. Orange juice comes out. What comes out of you?" When we perform acts of kindness, there is an increase of serotonin in the doer, in the person who is done to, and in the observer, anyone just watching. For you to be born today from 12 previous generations, you needed a total of 4,094 direct ancestors over the last 400 years. Think for a moment. How many struggles, how many battles, how many difficulties, how much sadness, how much happiness, how much love stories, how many expressions of hope for the future did your ancestors have to undergo so that you can exist here today? One set of my 10th great-grandparents, Edward and Anne Fuller, came over from Holland and England on the Mayflower. They died that first bitter, deadly winter, but their son Matthew lived on to love, marry, and have children, without whom I would not be standing here today. Be kind to yourself first. It's a whole lot easier for you to be kind to others if you've been kind to yourself first. I remember those who've been kind to me, and in 82 years there have been a lot of them. And every time I recall their kindnesses, I just send them a little prayer of thanks. Choose true loving kindness in your life. You don't know where they're coming from, but out of the blue, those kindnesses will return to you in ways you never could have imagined. And now, back to that quote from L.R. Knost. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended, not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go, love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Thank you.